Who is the best speaker of all those strong beings? Now, he or she who has listened closely to a vast range of awakening lore. Okay? Who is the best speaker of all those strong beings? Okay, so strong beings means strong in the Dharma, you know, somebody who's able to really express the Dharma well so that others can understand it and gain some experience from what they're hearing. Okay, so who's the best speaker? Well, I mean, clearly the Buddha, but aside from the Buddha, you know, those who have listened closely to a vast range, here it has of enlightenment lore, I would say of teachings. Okay, because teachings aren't lore, are they? You know? Okay, so this verse really emphasizes the importance of listening to teachings. So we always have the three things. Listening, which is sometimes including studying and reading. You know, listening, reflecting. Reflecting sometimes is contemplating or thinking about. And then third, meditating. Okay? So the kind of minimum requirement for, you know, being able to express the Dharma and teach the Dharma is having heard a lot of teachings oneself. Okay, now we could say having studied a lot of teachings oneself. However, you know, I'm really understanding why they often say hear. Of course, it means after you hear, you study and you read. But I think the hearing in a direct experience with a living teacher is really important. You know, that if you don't, you know, make an effort to attend teachings with a real live teacher in a group of real live people, but you only, you know, learn and study, then you don't get the full experience, you know. Of course, if you live in Timbuktu and there's nobody to study from, of course you go online, you read, and you do whatever you possibly can. But when you have the opportunity, listening to teachings and having a relationship with the teacher is something that cannot be replaced by reading or studying only. Of course, yeah? But like I said, after you hear the teachings, then you go back, you read the text, you know, or you read the text before you study the teaching, because then you know a little bit about it and you can understand the teaching better. Yeah, but you combine that whole process of learning, you know, but through hearing, reading, and studying. Yeah, and that's really important if one wants to teach or to give Dharma talks. Sometimes people are really eager, like, I want to be a Buddhist teacher, and, you know, I want to help sentient beings by being a Buddhist teacher. But the thing is, we have to make ourselves into qualified teachers. Otherwise, we become a mess. And if we teach things inaccurately, if we mislead people on the path, not only is it very heavy karma ourselves, but it's very damaging to the people that we teach. And I've really noticed, you know, sometimes they think, oh, just, you know, your first elementary person who gives you the general Buddhist talk and teaches you meditation, that person can, you know, kind of be anybody. But I've really noticed that people listen and they remember the first things they're taught about a subject. And if they learn those first things incorrectly, then when they hear the correct thing, they often have resistance to it. Yeah. Oh, but the first person, my first teacher said da 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 da, and it's really hard to convince them that that person didn't know it very well or expressed it incorrectly, or even that the person themselves misheard it. Lots of times we listen to things and we don't hear the teachings properly, and we don't remember the teachings properly. Yeah, so it's, can come from anywhere. Yeah, but as much as possible, that people really learn correctly. Because, we can see that within ourselves, can't we? What happens when we kind of learn something incorrectly, which could happen, like I said, because we don't study it and we just remember half of this sentence and half of that sentence and put it together to meet a third sentence, which was not what the teacher said at all. And that happens all the time. People will come up to me after a talk and you said da-da-da-da-da, and I go, really? Listen to the recording, I never say that. Yeah, but people remember things, and so it's important as much as possible from our side to help them remember things correctly. Okay? So, and they always talk about hearing teachings as kind of like, I don't know what analogy, it's like gathering a bunch of jewels or receiving a bunch of jewels, because when you have a lot of teachings, then no matter where you are in your life, you have a lot to think about and a lot to meditate on. And so I think here about like the people in Tibet, after 1959 who were thrown in prison, and they weren't allowed to even move their lips saying mantra or anything like that. But the people who had studied and had heard teachings and had memorized the text, then it was fine. They just sat there and recited their texts and contemplated their texts and meditated on all the teachings they had heard, and it was fine. That Dharma can never ever be taken away from them. Yeah? Whereas if we haven't studied, then if we get in a difficult situation, we don't have anything to draw on if we can't, get to the book or get to the computer, and we can't remember anything ourselves. Okay? So hearing teachings is really important. Of course, that's not the only thing. We also have to think about them, and discuss them, because that's how we refine our understanding and make sure that we really understood correctly. Yeah, and then after we have, the correct understanding, then when we meditate, we can, have some experience when we're also doing purification and creation, collection of merit to ripen our mind. Okay, so all those kind of activities then will make us a strong being, or a best speaker. Yeah, and they also say, especially like if somebody, has all three, hearing, thinking, and meditating, and so they have realizations, then when they speak, even they just say a little bit, it really goes in, by the power of their speech, because they're speaking from personal experience. They're not telling you theory, they're telling you kind of how it is. And so that's why they say that somebody who's a bodhisattva, who has generated bodhicitta, of course they have, realizations of many of the Dharma topics. So when that person teaches, it's like it's very powerful, because they're speaking from their personal experience. Yeah, they're not just teaching theory and lists and stuff like that. Yeah, so if we can make ourselves into that kind of person, then, put it this way, the more we go in that direction, the better we're going to be in terms of really being a benefit to others, and the more we're going to benefit ourselves. Yeah, because it's so really crucial to practice what we teach. If we don't practice it, then what in the world are we doing? But even if you just have a little experience with something, because you've really made it part of yourself, then when you say that to others, it becomes meaningful to them. Yeah? It's not just intellectual, blah, 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 you know? And so this, I think, is the difference between somebody who learns Buddhism in an academic setting but never practices, versus somebody who practices, whether, and you know, they may still learn Buddhism in an academic setting, you know, but they also practice, and that makes a huge difference. And of course, if you listen to the teachings from a lineage of practitioners, you're going to get a whole different experience than if you listen from, you know, people who are just studying a topic out of academic interest. Yeah, because, you know, somebody who is studying it because they practice it, because it's meaningful to them in their lives, you know, because they have some belief in it, then, you know, yeah, it's meaningful to that person. It's not just, you know, kind of like relating the characteristics of a car, you know, something like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, from all the visiting teachers. Of course, you don't learn that from your resident teacher. But from all the visiting teachers, it's very useful to learn from how they live their life and, you know, observing them and everything. Yeah. You should have seen her with Geshe Topke. Did you notice her? She was the perfect model. None. Eyes down, so serene, so peaceful, carrying his books, walking slowly and mindfully. She's perfect with Geshe Topke. Yeah?
That was the early days when I first met you as well.
Yeah. You were like that in the early days when you first met me. Now it's like, yeah. They often say when you stay around a teacher a lot, you have to be careful because your behavior becomes quite sloppy. Yeah. Yeah, so what Geshe Jampa Tekchok said, yeah, fine to be an academic, but that's not, yeah. Yeah, if you're going to teach in a Buddhist center to people who want to practice, then you really need to have practice and belief and faith yourself.